One of my theories on being dyslexic is that actually you can do anything. You can be anyone. Judges that are dyslexic, lawyers at the top of their field who are dyslexic, surgeons who are dyslexic. Like, you name a tough field, rocket scientists, you name a tough field, there is a dyslexic person thriving in that job. We weren't meant to be together, and it was very circumstantial of the fact that like he was living this amazing life and, you know, kind of like encouraging me to do the same, and I was so like amazed by that. And actually stepping away from him and doing it by myself has made me realize that I'm perfectly capable of it myself, and the greatness is within me. I don't need someone to push me into greatness anymore.
On today's episode, founder of Dyslexia in Adults, Natalie Brooks. Natalie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, as somebody that does not have it, what do I need to understand about dyslexia to be able to relate to somebody who is dyslexic?
Great question. I think with dyslexia, the thing that frustrates me a little bit is that it's viewed through quite a narrow lens. So when we think of dyslexia, we probably think of a child who's struggling to read or struggling to spell. But I guess what I want people to better understand about dyslexia is it's a difference in how we process information. We literally use different parts of the brain to process information. So the things that we're good at and the things that we struggle with are different to other people. And so I guess if I was to kind of simply give you a quick overview, that's what I would want you to understand, that it is something that's my whole life. It's everything that I do all the time, because it's my brain and it's processing information in different places. And that means, you know, there are challenges that are unique, like the spelling and the reading and other things like processing things differently and things like that. But also there's lots of exciting strengths and opportunities from that difference as well. So I guess if I was to give a kind of simple and quick answer, it would be that.
Can we go a little bit deeper? Because I'm very curious. I'd like to know. So in practical terms, where did the differences kick in? How is it that you process things differently than, you know, me?
Yeah, well, so like I said, we're using different parts of the brain to process information. And that means that one of the things that comes up a lot is that we're quite image focused, or we think about things in terms of stories, or we think about things in terms of ideas and concepts rather than thinking of things in words so much.
Interesting.
So that's why dyslexia is very well known for the reading and the spelling piece, because words is just not really our strong suit. We're more better with images and stories and examples. So that would, I guess, be the better way.
So verbally you can convey things very strongly.
Better, yeah, much, much better. But the irony is that sometimes receiving information verbally, because there's a reduced ability to process that information, the place where we process information called working memory, when things come into us verbally, is actually smaller. So the amount of information you could hold in your head at one time would be a little bit smaller. So that would be fine when we're having a conversation. But if you said to me, oh, I need to give you the directions to the nearest coffee shop and it's down here, left, right, and then over the road and then turn left, I'd be like, I'll just go on Google Maps.
Okay.
So that is things like that.
The more I'm listening, the more I'm thinking that I need to get tested.
It's so funny. So, I mean, it's thought about 80% of people are undiagnosed with dyslexia.
How many?
80%. There's a recent BBC study said that 80% of people are undiagnosed with dyslexia. So actually,
I'm definitely there.
It's highly possible. Like another trait that I think we go away from the spelling and the reading piece is your left and right. So if you you kind of know your left and right. If I said to you, go left, you would be like, ugh. And then you might look at your hand, or you might you wear rings on a certain finger to kind of know which way is which. That would be how you would actually know. You can't know in a heartbeat, in your kind of soul, know, like other people. That would be
exposed. Okay.
And then another one might be like telling the time, for example. So if you have a clock face watch, you might have to kind of go like.
Today's episode is brought to you by everyone's favorite kombucha, Momo. Aside being a super healthy and delicious drink that I enjoy having, the reason why I wanted to partner with Momo is the story behind it. A family-owned business, locally brewed and handmade, Momo is the fruit of the hard work of Josh and Lisa, who both quit their corporate jobs in order to create something they believed would create a good impact in the world. When I visited their brewery and saw with how much care each bottle was prepared and how much each one of their team members enjoyed working there and believed in their mission, I knew that that's the type of people that I want to work with. Check out their website for more information and use the discount code ISTHISIT15 to get the 15% off of your first order.
12, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you wouldn't look down at the clock and just know the time instantly. It would just take you a couple of extra seconds. These are all examples of dyslexia. Your face is telling 1,000 words.
Yeah. Oh my days. There we go.
But I'm
another one into my arsenal then.
Another thing that I try and do is try and talk about dyslexia not just through the challenges but also the positives.
Okay, tell me about the positives.
So another thing that I try and if I'm talking to someone and they think they may have dyslexia and we try not to center just on the reading and the spelling piece. One thing that I always start with people on the strength side is dyslexic people are famously great at giving advice. They're great friends. So if you're the kind of person who you find a lot of people coming to you for advice and they may say something along the lines of, oh, I never would have thought about it like that. Or you're so right, I just didn't put those two things together. Phrases like that are like ding, 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 dyslexia. Because dyslexic people are very good at putting things together and having big picture thinking. So we can assess a situation at a very kind of top level and then make associations and thoughts off that next piece that makes us the kind of the starting entry point that I always like to start with is great friends, because my friends always come to me and they say oh, I'm having this problem with my sister, and I'll say, oh yeah, but when we spoke about your sister 6 months ago, you said this, so it's obviously this and this, and if you connect them together, this is why she's behaving like that. And they'll say, oh my God, I can't.
You're an oracle.
I wouldn't go that far, but these are the kind of things that are signs of dyslexia.
Well, okay. Thank you for diagnosing me today.
Yeah, consider you Natalie rubber stamped.
Literally. Okay, so then what is any other telling things or strong impacts positively or negatively?
Gosh, there's so many. Like I said, it's ultimately the way your brain works. So it's every day in the way that you think. I think another one in terms of more on the positive side of things, if we look at problem solving as a famous kind of dyslexic strength. So the thing with the dyslexic strength of problem solving, the thing that can be a little bit alienating is that if you say problem solving, you kind of think that you have to be gold plated at problem solving, that you have to kind of be able to solve world hunger or something. That's problem solving. But actually, if we look at it more in the day-to-day, in the everyday life of what problem solving actually is, it's better understood as if someone said to you and came to you and they said, okay, I've got this situation, you would be able to come up with quickly, simply, very easily 5 options, just straight off the bat. It's oh, okay, interesting. Well, we could do this, 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 and this, and this. And then actually, okay, so option 1, the problem with option 1 is that you couldn't do this because of X reason. Option 2 also doesn't work for this reason. Option 3 has some good ideas. The downsides would be this, but actually this could work very well. And then option 4 and 5, also could work. And that's actually what we would be looking at when we come to dyslexic problem solving. It's the ease of coming up with multiple ideas and the ability to assess them effectively. That's actually what dyslexic problem solving looks like.
And so I imagine there's a spectrum of dyslexia. So somebody might have, kind of mild symptoms and somebody might have super intense ones.
It's
or is it all just in one cauldron?
Well, people have different opinions on this. Often neurodiversity is spoken of on a spectrum. So when we talk about neurodiversity, we're saying autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. People have different opinions. My personal opinion, I'm much better informed on dyslexia, but I guess we are talking about all of these when we're talking about neurodiversity, is that actually you have it or you don't. And I think it's often more about your environment, circumstances, systems, situation in terms of how much support have you been given when you were younger? What tools have you got? What job have you got? What, how much money do you have to better support yourself, as to how much of an impact it potentially has. That being said, lots of people do think it's a spectrum, and that it is, does show up as mildly and severely. In my experience of working with people, I haven't seen that so much. So this is my personal opinion rather than scientific advice.
Yeah. So you were diagnosed when you were 6.
Yeah, so I'm formally diagnosed dyslexic. The thing that you have to understand about neurodiversity is they pretty much always come together. You don't usually just have one. It's thought that you always have more than one. So I'm formally diagnosed dyslexic. I'm self-diagnosed. Bearing in mind, I know a lot of people in this industry and a lot of experts have been like, yeah. So I'm self-diagnosed with a kind of confirmation from a few people of also ADHD and dyspraxia.
So dyspraxia, is that?
Dyspraxia is basically your ability to kind of move in a space. So it would come off as clumsiness or being a bit awkward in your movement, or maybe you're not the best dancer and things like that. That would be kind of telltale signs of dyspraxia.
I see. So if you were diagnosed so early on about being dyslexic when you were 6, what sort of practical impact did that have on your life when you?
Yeah, I mean, a huge impact on my life, actually. I am a very unusual, lucky case when it comes to dyslexia. So I'm an only child, and my parents had a lot of time to kind of put into my early years of, my mum used to love teaching me things and talking with me and kind of, educating me and things like that. So I was a very kind of like vivacious, bubbly, like chatty young child. And then when I went to school, that side of me was still there, but then it didn't translate into the writing and the reading piece. So my teachers would have, the reason why I was diagnosed is my teacher had a kind of a detailed, interesting conversation with me about fur. I was like, fur is wrong and this is why. And I was, at 4 having this conversation about fur. And then like it just wasn't then translating in my ability to read, because that's one of the things about dyslexia is it's known as a spiky profile. So you have these strong abilities and like skills up here, but also then down here, these challenges and difficulties and frustrations. And it is the differential that makes it dyslexia. A lot of dyslexic people often end up feeling stupid, but we know that we're not dyslexic because you can't be dyslexic without the differential, without having the abilities. It's not dyslexia unless it's both. Unless it's the strong abilities up here and the difficulties down here.
Yeah. So back in the day, you didn't have those sort of consequences in the classroom where, you would feel maybe a bit inadequate, or did people bully you, or was there some sort of kind of external pressure?
Sorry, I didn't answer your question properly. So I was picked up as dyslexic, and my parents were like, okay, like we're going to throw the kitchen sink at this. So I was taken out of the school I was in, and I was moved to another school that centered specifically on dyslexia. I couldn't read and write really like effectively until I was about 10. And so it did have a big impact in the fact it directed all my schooling. I had tutors. I was kind of, my whole early years were kind of led by this dyslexia. Like it was kind of like, how do we figure this out? How do we make this work for her? My parents like nailed it in terms of not only the support, but their approach. They were like, you're really smart. You're really capable. But what is your way? How do we show off what you clearly have? And it's okay if that's not in exams. We're not bothered. If you get D's and you worked hard, you'll be fine. You'll figure something out.
So nice to have that support.
Something that it was like, I think it was probably the textbook way of handling dyslexia. It was like, throw everything we can at it, but also it's not a problem if you never figure it out. We don't care. We just want you to be happy. We know that you're smart, and grades are just grades, and that's just that. I, on the other hand, was like,
how did you handle that?
Yeah, so I was completely the opposite. I was intensely determined and was not going to let like any of this be a problem. And like A's were not good enough. I had to get A stars, and I would just work myself to the bone to do as well as I possibly could. And I was very determined and forthright in the fact that I was going to nail this.
This being
kind of academic success. I think probably is the best way to describe it. Even though I went to schools that were very supportive of dyslexia, they were very academically pushy. So it was very much an environment where unless you were the top of your class, unless you were the top of your field, unless you were on the track for Oxford and Cambridge, you were kind of awkward. Or, you know,
no pressure.
Yeah, B's were kind of like, oh, I see. Oh well.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a kind of
you were not going to have any of that.
Yeah, I wasn't thriving for B's. I was kind of really like had my head
the 18.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, I think I probably went a bit over the board, if I'm entirely honest, on how.
Why do you say that?
Why do I say that? I think now I look back on it and I think I didn't focus on what I was good at. I focused on what I was bad at. I spent the entire time centering myself on these exams and then going to university and then getting these next set of exams and then getting the job. And actually, I think being neurodiverse makes me so suited to self-employed life. And I was so centered by the track, the kind of the classic track, go to school, get good grades, go to university, get good job, like go on the career path. And, you know, I was working very classically career-centric jobs. My last job before I left working was Amazon, for example. And I wasn't meant for that life. Like I was meant for self-employed life.
Sounds like you were trying to prove that you can do it just as good as everyone else.
Exactly. And I don't think I realized that until I stepped out of it. And I was 28 when I, you know, started running the business full time. And I look at it and I think, if I'd have spent those kind of like 5 years, 8 years beforehand, building businesses, learning the craft of being self-employed, I would be so much further along than I am now. So
Hindsight, huh?
Yeah, it's 2020. I don't regret it. I'm just conscious of the impact it's had, I guess is the way I would think about it.
Very, very interesting. I mean, I see this in my own life. I sometimes have that thought passing, like you just described yourself. And for example, my sister, she's 7 years older than me. And, you know, I remember back in the day, she would be telling me, yeah, you want to do this now, etc. But the thing is, it's all well and nice, you know, in theory, but in practice, you need to go on your own journey. And until you're ready, those messages are not even entering your head. They're like passing right over.
I think, you know, one of the things I work on a lot in my job is helping people in work dealing with dyslexia. So people who are struggling at navigating workplace politics of dyslexia. And so actually, if I hadn't...
What does that mean exactly?
Well, one of my theories on being dyslexic is that actually you can do anything. You can be anyone. You can... I know, you know, judges that are dyslexic, lawyers at the top of their field who are dyslexic, surgeons who are dyslexic. Like you name a tough field, rocket scientists, you name a tough field, there is a dyslexic person thriving in that job. But what often we get caught out by as dyslexic people is our sense of ourselves, our sense of being maybe not good enough or being a problem or being a burden. And then that impacts the way you handle it. And then you kind of get stuck into a bit of a nightmare situation where you're not really focusing on what you should do. You're kind of trying to hide what you're struggling with. And you're kind of making yourself smaller. And then when you make yourself smaller, sometimes you can be open to having difficulties in terms of bad bosses. And then they can kind of tear you down even more. They can make you even smaller. And sometimes people get into a bit of a sticky spot with that. And that's an area that I really love working on with people, is helping them turn that around and say, okay, you've had that problem, you've had that circumstance, I get it, I've been there, I know how it feels, how can we figure this out? And my theory on my job is that I would love the world to be a certain way. I'd love the world to be totally understanding of neurodiversity and to not care about the spelling mistakes or to, you know, to just focus on the strengths. But I know the reality. I've been in the trenches, I've been working in the corporate jobs. I know that we're not there yet. The big companies are talking the talk, but the middle managers are not walking the walk. And so I love helping people who are in the trenches like I was, and to give them tools and strategies that are going to help them make the best out of a bad situation.
So what needs to happen, do you think, for for the middle management to walk the walk.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough. I'm a realist, and I really understand sometimes why people are finding it difficult in the middle management place. You know, if you've got a team of 3 and one person's main responsibility is writing reports and they're slower at writing reports, it's kind of a reality of dyslexic people that they can write reports, but they're probably going to be slower at it. And, you know, you've got a report due by Wednesday and you've got an employee saying, well, I probably can't turn it around by then, but I'm really good at big picture thinking. It's like, okay. I have some sympathy for the reality of it. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in this space is seeing how good teams come together and being able to effectively say, you know what, you're a details, analytical, in the weeds person and your skills are best there. You're a strategic, complex problem solver person, your skills are best there. And trying to build teams effectively to utilize each person's strengths and challenges to kind of like a jigsaw. So I think it's about that, doing that well. But I have sympathy for the fact that that is not easy.
For sure. I mean, from what you're saying, it almost sounds like it's not even the responsibility of the managers, middle management, etc. It should be the process of hiring that should go through the neurodiversity tests and understand the strengths and inclinations and weaknesses of each employee. Is that happening?
I mean, it's definitely not happening. I think that's one of the other things that
silly, right?
Well, that's one of the things that I'm also really passionate about. Is I think the problem is dyslexic people or neurodiverse people, we don't know what to go for. We don't know actually what will work and what will help us. And so often, if you're like, okay, I'm dyslexic, so I'm really bad at writing. Okay, I won't choose a job that's got report writing. And then I'll go into sales, for example, which was my strategy with my dyslexia when I was younger. And actually sales, I mean, I was still having to write large bid documents and I was still having to write long follow-up emails and do contracting. And there is no perfect job for a dyslexic person. I'm self-employed. The classic job, we're told, there's this kind of place to go into. There's still, as a solo entrepreneur, there's loads of admin.
Yeah, now you just do everything.
Yeah, now I do everything. There is no one else to kind of do the
now
stuff.
You have to be good at everything. You have to cover all the roles.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't really believe that there's a sense of the perfect thing. I guess what I try and help people is I say, like, what is the percentage of your week? Are you doing the percentage that you are good at, or are you mostly doing the percentage that you're bad at? 70% of your week should be stuff you're good at. And if it's 70% of the week is doing stuff you're bad at, then probably we're probably not in the right realm here. Like, that's probably not working. That's how I try and help my clients. And I say, like, okay, it's not about the fact you can't do this. It's about the fact, do you want your brain to be exhausted by doing this every day? Do you want to try and find stuff that your brain loves doing that is going to make you feel like alive on a Monday morning on the train on the way in, or as much as possible, as much as possible.
I mean, from what you're saying, I'm hearing that we're approaching this from the responsibility taking from the end of us. I say us, the people that are looking for a job, but I think it would be much more practical and useful and would boost the results and productivity of any business and any company if they included these sort of tests in the hiring process without any sort of stigma attached to it, because you want to ultimately harness maximum of your employees, right? And if they're happy whilst they're doing what they're doing, surely you're going to have a better performance. How is that not a common practice?
So, I mean, I entirely agree. I think like I said, I'm a realist. So I think one of the things that I've enjoyed doing and wanted to do is give people...
Obviously, you're helping where you can help.
Exactly. Yeah. The world is not perfect. Yeah. And I kind of feel like I don't want to... There are lots of people who are working at creating that change. That change is coming and people are working incredibly hard to deliver that. I think one of the things that I'm very conscious of is that people are in their jobs now. People are in their careers now.
Yeah.
People are unhappy now. Yeah. And we don't have 20 years to create that change. Now? What can I do right now to help people who need that help, because I've been there. I know what it feels like when you are on the struggle bus and really feeling overwhelmed by these challenges. So that's kind of my lens of it. So, but you're right, there is another side of it that says, you know, what can these companies do better? I think it's honestly just a case of the fact that change is really slow and really hard to implement. And I do feel like we're at the crest of a wave that people are trying to do this. Change is happening. People are starting to become alive to these things.
And it's because I didn't even hear about ADHD until a year ago. You know what I mean? And now it's like
it's everywhere. One of the things I often talk about when I'm kind of helping my clients see this reality is the fact of the matter is that the things that dyslexic people find difficult, the boring rote tasks that are kind of like low value, basically. I mean, if you think about what is going to drive a company forward, it's rarely writing a report or like, you know, putting together a form or, you know, these kind of level of tasks. It's about strategic thinking. It's about problem solving. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about looking at a problem and being able to assess it effectively. It's about bringing the best out of people. These are all dyslexic strengths and skills. So companies have to start becoming alive to this. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's a reality of the 21st century workforce that if we don't have these skills in the workplace being utilized and valued, then at a structural level, then it's going to start breaking down. Like, this is what companies need from their employees now.
So let's talk about your adult career path. How did that evolve, and was it in any way impacted by your dyslexia?
Oh, hugely. Everything in my life has been impacted by dyslexia. So I fear that listeners might drop off at this point, but just bear with me when I say what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I am a huge politics nerd. Ooh. I love politics. I'm fascinated by it. I am really likable. Just it's just a small personality, like breaking the matrix.
I'm completely averse. We're like on the opposite spectrums here, but I'm very curious to always hear from somebody that is very passionate about it.
I really think it's fascinating and I love it and I really enjoy it. I realize it makes me deeply unlikable.
No, that's not true.
Well, I think it is. So I did politics at university, and I did several summers at Westminster, and I really wanted to. I know. And I really wanted to go into politics, and my kind of rough plan was to do the kind of classic route that people do when they go into politics, which is, you know, work for either like the central party or work in as a staffer or work as a special advisor, all of that kind of thing, and then eventually become an MP. And then, you know, every political nerd like eventually is like, and then be prime minister, which is, I mean, not a reality, but just, you know, something you dream in your head.
You never know.
Well, I mean, you do never know, but you kind of I think we're quietly safe for now.
Okay.
So that was kind of the childhood dream, which I think just makes me really strange. But I was doing these kind of summers at Westminster, and it dawned on me that it's a lot of sifting through paperwork. It's policy documents, like, and it's thick legal text, and it's
sounds like a nightmare.
It just was my idea of hell, like sifting through at pace big complex documents. And the other thing that with politics is that if you do eventually become senior, which in my head I was going to, you get these boxes overnight where you have to read stuff and you have to then like write notes on it and approve it. And it's not during the day. It's like you finish your workday at 9 and then overnight you're expected to do this and then like deliver it back at like 6, 7 in the morning with, you know, it could be like 40, 50 pages of documents you have to read through. Now, anyone who is dyslexic out there or anyone who doesn't know about dyslexia, my brain is shot by about 4 o'clock. Like, I don't have a lot of mental capacity in the evenings. So that's my idea of hell.
Is that for everyone dyslexic? Is it?
I mean, you know, like every dyslexic person is an individual. So, you know, some people won't, but a lot of dyslexic people, their kind of mental capacity reduces as the day goes on. They're usually best in the morning. and then they'll kind of struggle in the evening. And then it usually flips with people who have ADHD. They're usually real night owls. So a lot of people who are dyslexic will have ADHD, and so, you know, it depends. The answer is it depends, basically, but it's a general theory that with dyslexic people, they're better in the mornings. So this is my idea of hell, basically. And one of the things, if you read the papers a lot with politics, is it kind of leaks who's good with their boxes and bad with their boxes, and who's on top of their brief and not on top of their brief. And you'll hear about cabinet ministers who like don't know their brief and don't read their boxes and aren't on top of everything, and they don't really know what's going on.
Shame.
And I was like, that's going to be me. That's going to be me. That's going to be me. It's going to be me. Not because I'm lazy, because that's the assertion that's like put in the papers, is that they're lazy. It would be that I couldn't keep up, and I was too scared of that shame. I gave up. I didn't do it. I didn't go forward with it for a couple of other reasons as well. You know, Parliament's a rough gig. It's a tough scenario.
Any specific moment that comes to your mind?
There's a couple of specific moments, of, you know, not nice experiences where I just thought this is not the place to kind of make your career. But the dyslexia was the leading factor. And so I just decided, you know what, it's always really nice to have a passion and an interest that isn't just your career. Because at that point, if I'd have gone into it, my passion would be my job.
And it would cease to be a passion.
Oh, of course, cease to be my passion. But also then you don't have a passion, you just have a job. And it's important in life to have passions and interests and hobbies and things that enrich you outside of your job. And I thought, well, you know what, it'd be pretty nice to keep this as something that is just an interest, that is just a hobby. And so that was kind of my rationale to make myself feel better. And so, decided against it and decided that I wouldn't do that. I mean, a fallback option would have been journalism as well, which I also writing. So that was off the table as well. But I feel really sad, to be honest, because actually what I now know is that dyslexic people are amazing at synthesizing complex information and explaining it simply, and that we're really good at understanding complex problems and theories. And so creating good policy could have been like a really strong dyslexic strength. And all I would have needed is for civil servants to précis a lot of those documents, just to cut them down and to, you know, make them a lot shorter. And I know Matt Hancock is not everyone's favorite human being in the world, but he talks a lot about being dyslexic and being a parliamentarian and, you know, working in senior government. And it just made me realize that it was only my internal fears that stopped me.
Mindset is everything.
Oh, 100%. And although, you know, he's, like I said, not everyone's favorite, I know if he'd have spoken out, if he'd have been in the position 10 years ago and speaking out, I probably would have gone into politics. It was not knowing anyone who was doing it that stopped me going forward into that. I'm sure and I hope that he has like changed a few people's minds, and for that you've got to give him credit.
And you know what, this is the importance and the power of having somebody to relate to. So you're very right. People that have a platform, people that, you know, are famous, people that are heard and seen, if they have any sort of particularities, like, it's important that they share them. Like, that's why people should be themselves, especially if they have a platform, because that's how other people can relate. For example, listening to you today, I didn't know, you know, anything about dyslexia except for that, you know, it's hard for you to read and, you know, the most basic things about it. After you explained to me all of the kind of the symptoms and how it works, I can most certainly, you know, I think I have it, because most of the things that you mentioned there, they apply to me.
Yeah.
And I remember all those moments when I would feel inadequate and I would feel so impatient with myself. I would have maybe the imposter syndrome. I would, you know, think that I'm stupid because I couldn't, you know, remember or process some of the, you know, really complex things that I would be hearing or remember. Or I'm super bad with locations and with maps. Like I always said that. But I don't mind. Like, that's not something that I care about. I think we have Google Maps for a reason.
Mhm.
You know, you save the space in your brain for things that are important rather than something that can be outsourced.
This is exactly
automated.
what is so exciting about dyslexia is all our challenges are being taken away. You know, it was only 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Google Maps came onto the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we were using paper maps. Now,
Crazy.
like you said, well, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that I'm bad at locations and maps and directions. And probably in 15 years' time, people will be saying, oh, it doesn't matter that I can't write a report very well. There's ChatGPT or whatever
You mean in a month?
Yeah, well, exactly.
In a month's time, yeah.
Exactly. So like the challenges are more and more being taken away and the opportunities are more and more coming to the fore. And that's where my passion comes in, that it is time as us as individuals to figure out what that is, to unlock it, to harness it, to take our career off to the next level, because it really is possible. And the other thing I just wanted to circle back to is if anyone is like interested in politics and they are dyslexic, Matt Hancock is just the loudest voice on dyslexia. And there's also another MP called Peter Kyle, who is really interesting, and he's doing a lot talking about dyslexia and being a politician as well. So just a shout out to him. Shout out. Yeah. If you want someone else to be your role model who's a little bit less controversial, he's like a rising star in the Labour Party, and he's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of educated individuals, you mentioned that university really had a strong impact on you. Why is that so?
So I think when I was younger, I was quite sheltered, and I had kind of a quite classic middle class upbringing, and it was all quite samey. Everyone was the same type of person in the same type of background, the same type of situation, and was probably a little bit sheltered in terms of, you know, I was busy working. I wasn't socializing loads, and was probably a little nerdy and a little uncool. A lot uncool. If I really think about
Let's
it.
speak facts here.
Yeah, very uncool. I just kind of had the opportunity, like so many people, I think, in a university, to just figure out a little bit more about me and who me is, and kind of be let off the rails a little bit. And
18 to 21.
Yes.
That's very quick.
What university is longer in other countries? So I think it's 4 years in some places, right? Yeah. I think it was just about the opportunity to just go a little wild, to be honest. Just like let down my hair and kind of meet people who are a little bit different, and to kind of find people who are a little bit more like you. I think it's a very classic university experience, but it definitely set me down a path of being more me, rather than being kind of obsessed by this academic achievements as much.
So what sort of things helped you move through the university and later on through your career in terms of practical tools to combat the negatives of the dyslexia?
Well, this is the whole point of the business. I didn't have them. I didn't know what they were. I was clueless. The one thing that I always used to say is I wasn't perfect. You know, school wasn't a snip for me. It wasn't easy. But I understood how to do it. I knew how to educate myself as a dyslexic person. I knew what to do, how to do it, what was going to work, how to do it effectively. And I felt in control, crucially. And then I became an adult and I was clueless. I felt overwhelmed. I felt unsure about what was going to work and what my strengths were and what my opportunities were and how to handle the challenges and how to communicate the challenges. I just was failing, basically.
What were the measurements of you saying that you were failing?
I think externally you wouldn't have realized, but internally that's what it felt like. It felt like the walls were coming in, and I just was kind of like scrabbling to try and figure out where to turn and what to do.
Because you felt like you weren't up to speed with everything you had to do.
I just didn't feel in control, I think is the best way to describe it. I mean, I'm by no means perfect. There's still many dyslexic mishaps, but I feel in control now. I feel capable. I feel clear on what to do and how to do it and how to navigate it. And that is basically what I wanted for myself, and that's where the business came from. is that sense that I knew it was possible because I'd figured it out in education. And it was just about figuring it out in adult life, particularly in work adult life.
So tell me practically, you were working at Amazon for how long?
I was at Amazon for like around 2 years, but my career was working in kind of account management, sales, like kind of like supplier relations, brand partnerships, all of that kind of realm in lots of different companies.
Okay, over the years. And so whilst you were doing that, was there a bit of lack of fulfillment, or what made you create Dyslexia in adults, and you know, how did that come about?
So kind of across my career, like we discussed with politics, there was a case of kind of always making myself smaller. There was the kind of okay, I can't do this, so I'll go over here, and I can't do this, I'll just try and do this. I can't really do that very well. Okay, I'll go over here. And I just felt like I was kind of like trying to like do some kind of Olympic level gymnastics to kind of like move myself into what I thought people wanted of me, to try and be successul, when in reality it never felt like success. And I mean, I was...
What is success to you?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I was earning a good wage, not a great wage, but a good wage. And I was, by the end of working in corporate life, at a good company, but I didn't feel like I was successful. And I think it was more about, I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my potential. I knew I could do better, and I was frustrated by that feeling. I also didn't feel happy every day. And I'm a naturally happy person, so I wasn't on the tube on the way home crying.
Is that a realistic expectation, though, to feel happy every day?
What I mean by that is I didn't feel like I was doing what was going to make me happy every day. Like, I didn't feel like I had made the right choices.
I understand.
I think you're right. Happy every day is probably a tough bar to reach. But I didn't feel like it was ever possible. It felt like I was on the struggle bus and
on the wrong path.
Exactly. So I think it was a combination of feeling like I had actually fulfilled my potential and that I was actually working at a level that my brain was capable of. And I didn't feel like that was the case. And then secondly, feeling like, if we go back to what I was saying before, that the percentage was right, that the percentage of my week was fulfilling or enjoyable or something I was good at, rather than something that was draining, exhausting and frustrating and irritating. And I just felt overwhelmed a lot. I think it was about those two factors more than anything. Like, a little bit about money, because you know, at brass tacks it comes back to a lot.
So you decided to create this community. This what was the idea? What is it for people that are listening? What is dyslexia?
Yeah. So well, I didn't. It wasn't like a big bang. Like I'm gonna create this. It was kind of half. Oh, this is a good business idea, and half. Oh God, I'm struggling. So basically, the way that it started is I was really struggling with my dyslexia, and I couldn't find anything for adults. It was all for children. And if it was for adults, it was like, when you become an adult, you'll utilize the strengths and everything will be great in the green grass. And I was like, well, not living the green grass life right now. Like, yeah, what on earth does that mean?
Yeah.
So I was kind of trying to figure it out for myself, trying to kind of understand, how do you navigate adult dyslexia? Like, how do you create what you need to be successful? And then secondly to that, I was also thinking that there's got to be other people who feel like this. I can't be the only one who is alone in this. So I was kind of searching for community a little bit, searching for people who felt the same as me, searching for a feeling like I wasn't weird and alone and like the only one in this situation. And at the time when I was kind of, I'd been mulling this problem for a while. It'd been like in the back of my mind. It had multiple implications.
What age were you?
At this point, it was 2019 when I started the business, November 2019. So 27. But I reckon I'd been thinking that this is a business concept or something I want to go into or something that's there or a good idea. It was in and around the back of my mind from about 22. I was working at a company. So I'd had multiple impacts across my career of my probation being extended or being picked up for major mistakes or this feeling of not really being good at whatever I was doing. And I was working at a company, and a friend of mine was kind of waxing lyrical about community and the importance of community and the importance of finding your tribe and figuring things out as a group and as a community and how fulfilling that can be. And that's where the business kind of idea came from. As a good friend of both of ours, who she just was so inspiring about the importance of community and the value of community, particularly on these like knotty complex problems, that she was like, well, I'd started on Instagram kind of talking about my own problems and like trying to figure this out, but like, you know, as my own personal issue. And she was like, you should create a community, like you should, you know, grow this and create this into something. And I decided to kind of create a membership basically off the back of her inspiration. And kind of, she just kind of gave me a little bit of a kind of kick in the right direction, really, is the way that I think about it.
So it was born as a membership kind of site. It was
born originally as an Instagram account,
okay,
that I just was kind of talking about. But
and then people gravitated towards that?
Yeah, I think it got about 5,000 followers within about 3 months, 4 months. And we were talking about this before we started recording. I am not an Instagram girly. Like, I am not at all. I had a private profile that I never posted on. And my early days posts are terrible, and I leave them up there because people often like say to me like, oh, I could never do what you do. And you're like,
yeah, you could.
You don't understand. If I can do it, anyone can. Like, you should see my early posts. They are
I will look
bad. I have the first few screenshotted so we can look afterwards.
Okay.
I mean, truly, if I can do it, anyone can do it. You don't have to be the classic aesthetic person. I actually 90% of the time on my Instagram don't put any makeup on, don't like make myself look particularly presentable, because that's my vibe and I don't have the energy to make it any other way. Exactly. My best TikTok post that has 3.5 million views, I have no makeup on. The lighting is terrible. The backdrop is like notes that I've been writing on the board. And I was about to go for dinner and my friend was like, come on, Natalie, we've got to go for dinner. And I was like, hang on, I just got to film this TikTok. And I just banged it out. First thing I could think of. And I got 3.5 million views. Yeah, my hair is scraped back. It's greasy. But the point is good and it's authentic, like you said.
Amazing. That's the thing. You know that you've hit the jackpot when the traction is organic, when people hear your message, the details don't matter. You know, you're doing something right.
Well, I'm up to 75,000 followers across 3 platforms now, and like I said, no formal training on social media, no experience on like how to do this. It's just, I know my message, I know who I'm talking to, I know what they need to hear, and I just try and say that as succinctly as possible. And that's all that has kind of achieved this.
So you mentioned that you left Amazon when you were 29 and you were making 129 pounds a month at the time. I mean, that
in the business, not at Amazon.
I would be very concerned if that was the case. So, I mean, I guess that would have taken a lot of courage. How did that feel at the time?
Yeah, it was 127 pounds, just if we want to get my sob story correct. And I think...
What made you take the leap?
A combination of feeling like I didn't have a choice. Like I felt like I had to go into self-employed life. Like it was the only path for me. It eventually had got to that stage where I just felt that this was the only thing that I could actually do. And secondly, which by the way, I don't think anymore. I genuinely think I would be capable, and I do think people can thrive in corporate life. I just was kind of feeling like that from past experience, and I just didn't have someone to kind of put me in the right direction. So I don't want to kind of make it all feel too negative. So a combination of that, and also it's just a great idea. And I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to follow this. And I think it was like 50% like just pure faith of like, this is going to work. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to find the way. And 50%, I've got to do this for me. I've got to just like follow this path for me. A bit of both. To be honest, a healthy dollop of our friend Michelle giving me a good kick in the right direction. Michelle, yeah.
You're a real one.
She's very, very encouraging. And to be honest, so were my parents as well. They were like, of course you're meant to do this. Like, just, you know, worst case scenario, just pick up another job in 3 months. Like, you know, what's the worst that happens?
Absolutely. And you know, you have no idea on how many moments, on how many levels I can relate to what you're saying. And I track it back to my own experience. At some point, I used to be in sales for a very long time as well, for 8 years. And I just remember at some point, I felt like I was looking at myself from a third person's perspective, and I was just like a shell, like existing there in that position. And that was not me. That was not what I was born to do. That was not what I was meant to do. And, you know, I became so disassociated to who I was, because I essentially was living a lie. Like I felt it within me that is not what I'm supposed to do. And after you do that for so long, you can't anymore. And at some point I just had to go. Like I had to quit because it's just so long that you can live a lie until it becomes unbearable, especially if you're a self-aware person, especially if you're in tune with yourself and with these emotions, and you can't silence that inner voice. It's there, like, with you.
I felt like there was this whisper so quiet right at the bottom of my brain. It was like, and it was so quiet. It was like, it was hardly there. And then like everything else was like screaming at me like, you'll fail. And it was this tiny little voice was like, you can do it. You can do it. That I kind of like, I look back on like the kind of sharp left turn I took at that like 28, 29. And I'm like, what possessed you? Like, you made some big moves. But I just think I'd been listening to the voice of fear that had been screaming at me for 10 years. It just hadn't been delivering to me what I wanted. And it just felt like there was no other choice but to listen to the whisper is not even the right word. Like the kind of like the mouse squeak that was like, try something else. And that was kind of, I just had to eventually listen to that because it felt like there was no other road to go.
And it's that awareness always of choosing the right voice to listen to. That's the wisdom, I think, over time, especially as you get older, as you get, you know, you learn from your mistakes, hopefully, and you get more and more in tune with what's happening inside, and your intuition grows stronger. If you sometimes take that right choice, then you learn it over time. And I think when you're able to tune into that right voice, not the voice of fear, but the true voice that's guiding you towards what you are really meant to do. Yeah, that's when the good stuff happens.
I agree. I mean, I'm exceedingly grateful that I made some big moves. I mean, it's changed my life wholeheartedly for the better. Just one of the things that people say to me all the time, which I'm quite uncomfortable about, but I you know, it does land, but I probably don't show it when they say it, is that I often get people say like, you're living the life that we always knew you were capable of. People will often say to me like, this is a bit more what you should have always been doing. Often I used to feel like there was a little like sparkle of something exciting about me that I was just ignoring. And I kind of eventually followed it with a little bit more gusto, and everyone around me has just been like, this is a bit, a bit better, isn't it? Like, this is a bit more.
It's funny how others see it, right?
Oh, I think they would even say it back before, and they were like, is this it for you?
Oh my God.
Like, and then eventually now, I'm sure we'll get onto it. Like, I travel full time, I'm self-employed, and, you know, I left a long-term relationship, and everyone is a bit like, that's your tone. This is a bit more like it.
So before we move on to that, because I really want to talk about the nomadic life, tell me about the business model your company?
I think it's quite a classic one that you'll see on Instagram a lot. So the kind of bread and butter of it is a membership that people join.
Like an annual membership?
Yeah. You can join monthly, but yeah. And then there's also more high touch one-on-one coaching, and then more kind of entry low touch online courses that are kind of like a taster of what I kind of try and teach and help people with.
So how do you, I guess, manage it all and manage your time?
Badly.
I mean, that's a super relevant topic for me, so.
It's really badly. I think I kind of oscillate between working really, really hard and giving it 100%, and then kind of taking the brakes off and being like, oh, this is a lot. And then kind of being like, oh, sod it, it's fine. I'll just do the bare minimum. It's actually something that is my focus for this year, is figuring out how to really work effectively for this life, in the fact that you can so easily get stuck on like just running the business, not moving the business forward. And I've kind of spent a lot of the last few months just running the business, not moving it forward. Now my focus is a lot more on moving it forward, and then obviously you don't want to drop the ball on running it, and it's kind of like a push-pull factor of both those.
Delegation.
Yeah, so I would describe it as a not wholeheartedly worked out process that I'm
work in progress.
100%.
So, okay, let's go into your nomadic lifestyle. You've been a nomad for 18 months now. So I love this because I had a guest recently. He's been a nomad for 5 years.
Wow.
I should put you in touch. So
yeah,
you can
I would love that.
Share some advice. So how does that practically work? Do you live on luggages? Do you live in any specific country? Is it a month per? Is it like seasons? And how do you manage the workload in relation to that?
Yeah, also a work in progress. So I started 18 months ago by accident. Didn't intend on this lifestyle.
How do you start?
It's a good story, actually. So I was broadly newly single, like not super newly single, but a little newly single. I was kind of like a baby single person. And Michelle, she's a nightmare. Everything is her fault, I guarantee you. We went on holiday together, and everyone should have a Michelle in their life.
Michelle.
Yeah. We went on holiday. I'm telling you, every good and bad thing in my life roots back to her.
Okay, all right.
She's responsible for a lot. So we went on holiday, and she was like, I want to go to this chain called Selena, which like is kind of a hostel, but kind of not. And also you can remote work there. And she's like, I just want to try it out because it's got a big community kind of ideal. And I was like, whatever, yeah, sure, whatever, wherever you want to go. Didn't really think anything of it. And then we went, and there was in this hostel, there's a co-work in there. So you stay there and then you work there. And I was like, this is cool. And she was like, yeah, well, you could come out for a week and, just get some sun and enjoy it, is what she thought was going to happen. Anyway, so I go again for a week in the summer, and I just like go to Lisbon, and I'm just, going to a week for a work and a bit of sun. And I'm so nervous that I only book a one-way flight, because I think, well, if I hate it, or if I make no friends, or if I don't work, or it's terrifying, I can just fly home. And
lo and behold, 6 months later,
18 months later. So night one, there's a welcome drink where you meet everyone who has like come that day. And I'm at the rooftop bar, and there's a community manager there. He's like, oh, you're English and you're self-employed. Oh, let me introduce you to a few people who are similar. So he introduces me to a guy, obviously. We all know that was the way the story was going. And we hit it off, and we go for dinner. And we're getting on really well at dinner. We're laughing so much that the restaurant staff are telling us to be quiet.
Actually.
And so we're going for dinner. And at the end of the dinner, he goes, I'm going to Costa Rica next week. Come with me. I was like,
love it.
No.
What?
No. Like, I don't go to Costa Rica with strangers. I don't go to Costa Rica.
Okay, now I want to hear whether you went.
So I was like, no. not nothing. We'd just gone for dinner. We were just two people going for dinner, and I was like, no. And he was
Could be serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. and he was like, I'm serious. Like, why the hell not? You're newly self-employed. You're newly single. You're 29. Why not? And I was like, no, that's annoying. Like, leave me alone. In like not in a kind of like, in a flirty, like, no, not kind of like a, no, leave me alone way. So the next day we go for breakfast and, we're going for a walk, and he's like, I'm serious, by the way, like, come to Costa Rica. I was like, I can't go to Costa Rica. Like, that's ridiculous. Stop saying this. And he was like, but why not? And I was like, I don't know, but I can't. Like, stop it.
The old ways.
Yeah, just the kind of small life,
of course,
theory. I just wanted I was just following a simple life
I've
plan.
done this all this time. Means that's right, and means I should keep doing it.
This is what everyone does. They live in London, they work, they kind of, and then they find a boyfriend and they get married and then they die. And that was what I was going to do.
Wow.
Maybe a few more things in between.
Yeah.
He just basically kept on saying, why not? And I kept on not really having good reasons. And the only reason I could give was that I owned a flat in London, and he was like, well, you're only going for a month. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Funny how the house that's supposed to be your roots and your protection actually becomes your burden and your cage.
Well, it's a 2-bedroom. So one of the rooms was rented out. So it was actually, the mortgage was covered. It wasn't a big deal. I just hadn't opened my eyes to the options. Anyway, so we met on the Friday night and we booked flights to go to Costa Rica on the Sunday night, just insanity. We went to Costa Rica, had an amazing time, and I haven't looked back since.
Wow. Love that. How long did you stay there?
2 months in the end. Yeah. And then also we went to LA and spent Christmas in Santa Barbara with a couple of his friends. Came back to England and then went on to Morocco, Portugal, and
Love it.
And then the rest of the history.
Are you still together?
No. Okay. I mean, he's wonderful, and I am so grateful that I met him, because he just
sounds like he was a catalyst to that Nomad Life.
Yeah, the way I describe meeting him is like he put his hand out and he was like, let's. You are capable of bigger. It was very similar to Michelle. Just gave me just a shunt in the right direction. And I'm very, very glad that I met him, and he had a very significant impact in my life. It was a bit of a brutal heartbreak, but sometimes these things happen in life.
Those are the ones that usually propel you the quickest way into the next level of your growth.
It was rough. It was a rough experience. He's just very special, so I was kind of not keen on the idea of it ending, but now I'm further away from the situation. I realized that it wasn't right, and we weren't meant to be together, and it was very circumstantial of the fact that like he was living this amazing life and kind of like encouraging me to do the same, and I was so like amazed by that. And actually stepping away from him and doing it by myself has made me realize that I'm perfectly capable of it myself, and the greatness is within me. I don't need someone to push me into greatness anymore. Before it was Michelle, and then it was him, and now I realize that actually
you're comfortably living in the greatness. Yeah,
it's within me. I'm perfectly capable of it myself. I don't need other people, but I think I needed that push or that guidance to it at the time to kind of create those changes. Very, very glad I met him, and very, very glad that we're no longer are together as well.
Okay. Yeah. All is as it should be.
I think so. Yeah.
So I guess in practical terms, for anyone that's listening and they're fascinated by this nomad life, any sort of kind of practical advice? Do you keep traveling again? Is it like a month, every 2 months? Is this random? Do you Airbnb?
Yeah, I think I do have a couple of tips actually. It's a little based on circumstances. So I try and follow the sun and try and stay in like warm places when it's cold over here, and then swap back. So I mean that's generally the way I plan it, and then
following the sun.
Yeah.
the same. I'm a lizard.
Yeah, I'm 100%. The thing that I find the most difficult is because I'm 30, I have weddings coming out of the wazoo. Like I have so many weddings. So my whole year is structured around these weddings and coming back for them. So if you look at my route last year, you're like bewildered by it. It was Morocco, Portugal, Mexico, and then back the Balkans, so Montenegro, Bosnia, then Colombia. And you're like, why did you go to Mexico and then back to Colombia? But it's weddings. It's always like
people tying the knot.
Yeah, weddings made me stay in Europe for the beginning of the year. Then weddings made me come back, and so it's actually basically structured around weddings. I only have 4 this year, so it's not too bad. I had 7 last year. So what I try and do is a minimum of a month in each location, because my one piece of advice that I would give to people is it is not a holiday. You are living somewhere and you have to treat it like you're living somewhere. So a Monday night is a Monday night, and you got to try as much as possible. I mean, it's fun, this lifestyle. You got to try as much as possible to remember that a Monday night is a Monday night.
Work needs to be done.
Work needs to be done. And like, you've got plenty of opportunities. And the reason why I say it's not a holiday is it's not a week that you're there and you need to like cram happiness into a week. If you don't go to the beach with your friends on a Tuesday, you'll go to the beach on your friends next Saturday, like, or the Saturday after, like you have plenty of opportunity to do cool things, and protecting your energy and your work to be able to continue this lifestyle is more important than like short term.
Yeah, getting overwhelmed by the possibility and wanting to hang out. This is something that after that conversation with this other podcast guest a month ago, it really kind of all the light bulbs went off, and I started thinking about my own situation and, you know, started imagining, you know, how about, you know, tearing down these walls and these preconceptions and these like small life, as you say, and thinking about this as well. And one of the things that came up to me is also, okay, in practical terms, if I'm visiting a friend or if I'm somewhere, I will want to, you know, explore the town, and that normally when you go on a holiday becomes the priority. Like you sightsee, you do this, you explore the town because it's new. But as you say, if you're a nomad and you're still working, then your top priority always has to be actually getting the things done and just being super mindful of, that leisure time is the same leisure time that you would have in your town. So, you know, if you need 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 5 full days to get the work done, then that means that you still have only the weekend to really hang out.
Yeah, 100%. Which is why it's usually a minimum of a month in each location, because you can't hit, because if you think about it, like I go to some places, and if you're on the road with other travelers, my one big tip is basically just make friends with digital nomads. Don't make friends with travelers or people on holiday.
Okay.
Because they are on a different trajectory than you. And like, you know, if you make friends with people who are traveling and they're not working and they want to go and like, you know, do something really cool and wild on a Tuesday, and then it's like,
kicks in.
Yeah, and then you maybe go and then you miss a meeting and your boss is kind of like, thought you could handle the digital nomad lifestyle. Like that kind of thing. I just best make friends with other digital nomads. They'll all be
local people.
Yeah, they'll all be on the same vibe with you, and so therefore it will be less intense experience. So yeah, so often I'll say to people like, oh, I'm going to this place for 3 weeks, and they're like, I was there 3 days, like that's not enough time. And I was like, no, but 3 weeks, like both, there's going to be 2 travel weekends and then 1 like fun weekend. It's only really 2 days, like, and I try not to kind of, you know, push myself too much on like a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. Like if I just stay in my Airbnb and watch TV, like it's totally fine. It's a Tuesday night.
Yeah, you have to embrace that is in fact your lifestyle, and in this pursuit of maximizing everything, very guilty of that, you can actually have the adverse effect. And that becomes, instead of being something amazing and enjoyable, it now becomes a burden, because you're trying to have it be a holiday and try to get the work done and try to explore and try to do everything and, you know, get overwhelmed.
I think a lot of people would like, you know, they would say to me, oh, you've been to Mexico City, like what would you recommend? What would you do? And I was like, I was there 3 weeks and I was working. I don't know if you probably know it better on a 10-day holiday than I would ever, even though I was there for 3 weeks. Because, you know, I just went to the same cafe every morning for breakfast because they had good Wi-Fi and, you know, the food was nice, and that's enough for me. And I don't need to hit every place and hit every city and do it like so intensely, because it's just, for me, just living like a lizard. I just am going to like hunt out the sun and the good food, and like, you know, that's kind of my approach to it.
So basically, time schedule, priorities, hang out with digital nomads or locals, not holiday people. Anything else?
No, I think that's probably the crux of it. Maybe try and like don't pack your schedule really tight. Don't do like a week or 2 weeks in each place, because you will just burn out. Like, traveling is tough. It's
too much logistics.
The logistics is unbelievable. Like, I move one place a month, and I mean, the admin, unbelievable.
That's another thing that I was thinking. Initially, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a week every single place. And I was like,
so much admin.
That's 2 days each side. I'm not sure about that. And then you need to find your cafes. You need to find your places.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say is, if you are new to it, the digital nomads communities in terms of staying in a co-live, or Selena is obviously a great option.
What is it called again?
Selena. They're all over the world as well, so it's really accessible. I think they have like 60 or 70 locations now, so like they're everywhere.
So is it like a community living for digital nomads?
I think they prefer it to be called a hotel, but it's a
home away from home.
I would describe it as a really high-end hostel. It's, I guess, technically a hostel, but I mean, it's very expensive and it's very nice. I don't think anyone would ever kind of look at it and think this is what a hostel looks like. And they have a month program you can buy called their co-live program. So you pay for a month and you can go to like a number of locations within the month. Yeah, it's great. I think it's a really accessible, easy way to start. You'll meet other digital nomads. They've got co-works in pretty much every one. The Wi-Fi is always good. It's very safe. It's on the expensive side for, you know, other options that are out there, but it's kind of accessible pricing. If you do the co-live program, I think it's a really good like starting point into it. It's not just for digital nomads, and like, and you know, you can just stay there on holiday and stuff like Michelle and I did. But yeah, that would probably be like my tip if someone's wanting to start out, that it's a great first start. The best thing about the co-live program is if you hate your location, you can just change it. Or if you meet someone and you're really enjoying it, and there's a Selena path usually, so you run into someone, you run into them again, like good and bad. Nice. So you'll kind of be I ran into someone in 4 countries. Did 6 months in South America.
Someone you wanted to see or not?
Someone I wanted to see.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were kind of like sitting, like I would be sitting in a co-work and he would walk in. I was like, who's following who? Like, is it you following me or am I following you? And you know, you kind of like, you form like a bit of a Selena crew, and you see each other again, and yeah, so it's a really nice like easy starting point, I think.
Thanks. Good tips.
I love it. I highly recommend the lifestyle.
I'll let you know if I embark. We'll share some tips. If I asked you what your purpose was in life, what would you tell me?
If you asked me what my purpose was in life, what would I tell you? I think it's just to try and be happy as much as possible, to as much as possible live happiness in the everyday. Something I'm really passionate about is, as much as possible, the little things being as good as possible. So, you know, whether or not that's just going to a nice cafe every day and enjoying a good coffee and appreciating and enjoying that good coffee and kind of taking it for what it is. That's kind of my like little life mantra, is I really like to find joy in the everyday.
My closing question is always the same, which is, what is your recipe for happiness?
Joy in the everyday. Yeah, definitely. Because I think, you know, the big life events that we have, they are few and far between. To just celebrate happiness in the promotions or in the birthdays, or, you know, or even bigger, the weddings and things like that, they're not enough. They're so,
I agree.
And also there's so much pressure. You know, my 30th birthday was this year, and there's so much pressure to enjoy that. Whereas if you just, how can I make Monday as good as possible. It doesn't have to be great, but it's just as good as possible.
Not delaying the happiness.
Definitely, that's what I'm really passionate about. And I guess also it feeds into the fact that I'm single, and single at 30 is definitely something I don't find easy. And everyone is,
Why not?
Everyone I know is
Because of
on
the pressure?
a little bit pressure, definitely. I would be lying if I said I wasn't. But I think that everyone feels in a different path to me. Everyone that I like hold dear in my life is very doing different things and having different conversations and has different priorities and is centering themselves on different things to me. And I have come to peace with it, but I don't love that space between us as people. Like some of my favorite people in the world, like their conversations are around buying houses and getting married and you know all of that stage of life stuff, and you know whether or not they're going to have kids and when they're going to have kids, or if they have kids, where the kids going to go to school, and mine are like, oh, I got really drunk on this date last night. And it just although there are plenty of people in my life who we navigate that divide and we kind of build a bridge to each other and we respect and honor each other's different life circumstances,
which is really important.
It's really important. Yeah, it's also just tough to be on a different path. I'm sure it's tough for them as much as it's tough for me. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that kind of fuels that theory is that if I only waited for joy when I was kind of in a relationship and, you know, had the ability to have a hen do and have a wedding and all of that, I would be potentially waiting a long time. Like, it's not looking likely. So, you know, it would be a long time until I was able to like have those big celebratory moments. I can never get promoted again. I'm a founder. That's as high as I'm gonna reach. So there's not a lot of big life celebrations coming up for me anymore. I've turned 30. I've not got any big birthdays coming up. So yeah, joy in the everyday I think is really important. And that sounds a bit depressing, but no. I don't mean it like that. I genuinely think it has created a deeper, more meaningful happiness than I ever had when I only searched for and celebrated and appreciated the big milestones. The buying the house, the getting engaged, the hen do's and all of that didn't really provide much joy, to be honest.
So interesting listening to you. And by the way, I fully agree with you on happiness being accessible to you and should be accessible to you in each and every moment. It's up to you to find that emotion in every single place that you go, every single thing that you do. It's up to you. I always see it as almost like a switch that you are in control of and you can flip anytime. Like I could go and grab a coffee, not an ad by the way. I could go and grab a coffee, being super frustrated, overthinking about the future and whatever other tasks I have to do, or I could go and grab a coffee and be like, oh my god, I have money to grab a coffee, I'm meeting a friend, so many excited plans.
Or
and
just
the same. The circumstances are the same.
It's a nice day outside, the sun is on my face.
Yeah, that's it.
It feels fresh. I'm listening to my favorite song.
I can walk.
Yeah, like, exactly. Just like I'm having a nice walk with my favorite song with like all right weather as it so happens to be today. And that's like just enjoying that little moment is enough. And exactly like you said,
it doesn't have to be delayed.
You could be sitting there like stressing about whatever you're stressing about, or you could kind of just find the joy in the little walk. And that's that. I mean, it's not easy and it's not possible every day, and there are tough things that happen.
It's a habit, and you need to have that awareness and you need to retrain yourself to do that.
I agree.
But it is accessible to everyone.
I completely agree.
And another thing that you mentioned when you were talking about, you know, the big milestones and the house buying and getting married and hen do and everything. Well, who even says that those are the milestones or the moments that will make you happy? Genuinely, like when you were explaining, like painting these pictures to me, I had like zero emotion attached towards that, which signals to me that I have like no expectation around it. I'm not expecting it to be, if anything, I can imagine it's extremely stressful. And from my own experience, any time that you have some sort of an event that you're looking forward to, you know, it's 99% of the time the emotion happens in the build-up, in the getting there, right?
In the everyday.
So if you don't, exactly, in the everyday leading up to that event is only going to happen for a split second.
Mm-hmm.
So if you decide to only reward yourself and only allow yourself to feel certain emotions whilst it happens, why would you ever do that? Like, you have the rest of 99% of the time that you can enjoy yourself.
I completely agree. I mean, if you looked at me at 28, I was engaged, working at Amazon, owned a flat in London, and I was exactly that person you were describing before, that like that outer body experience, looking at myself and being like, is this it?
No way.
Is this everything? Is this what happiness is? Because it's not feeling all that. And now I'm, not the most financially stable I've ever been in my life. I'm not poor, but I'm not, where I was at before. And I am single, and I don't have a fixed address, and, I travel around, and I am the happiest, like brightest, best version of me. I show up, and I'm more, I'm better for the people around me as well. Not just for me. The way that I see myself kind of, encouraging people and bringing people forward, it's because I can feel the happiness in myself. I'll be like, you can do it though. You're so capable. You're so wonderful.
Because your cup is full, because you're doing what is naturally yours
100%.
to be done.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah. Whereas before I probably would have been like, oh, I know, right? It's tough, isn't it? Life sucks. And now I'm like, no, like, come on, like, happiness is there for you. Go out and grab it, reach it. And
because you have it.
Yeah. All my friends are like, you're so wonderful to be around. You're so encouraging. And I never would have been like that before. It's like a really purposeful shift.
And the thing that I'm hearing here is very simply, you were living by other people's standards and description of what happiness is, what success is, what the milestones need to be achieved.
Definitely.
And this is one of the things that I work as well with my clients on, is unpacking those big concepts of happiness, concepts of freedom, concepts of success. Most of us live our daily lives operating on someone else's definitions of what those things are, and we're chasing them. And we are living them sometimes, yet it doesn't feel like you're happy, you're successful, because it is not your definition.
100% agree. Couldn't agree more. Nailed it. You did a better job of what I was saying. Yeah, perfect.
Let's revise those, and let's find our own definitions of what is happiness, what is success, what is freedom, what is love, what is successful relationship. And those are going to be looking very different for each individual, and that is okay. And that's your North Star, going after your one.
Yeah, I entirely agree.
I mean, on this note, thank you so much.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and share it with someone. I would love to hear your feedback and suggestions as to what guests you would like to see on the show next. See you next week.